On this day of the unveiling, I suggest that the statue to Douglass is an invitation to find more of African American culture and to see its origins not as a separate entity, but as a part of life on the Eastern Shore for so long and is so creative that it has been a part of us and not an add-on or a remnant. Now, how can we go about this new search? An invitation that we have given each other today. We have an answer in the form of a suggestion. There is a picturesque map of White House from the 1960s of the buildings that included the slave quarters at White House as they would have stood in the 18th and 19th centuries. It was drawn by Henry Chandley Foreman. The map is as enticing as it is mystifying. It shows many slave quarter buildings, all now gone. As we excavated at White House over the last 6 years, we have dug 3 buildings on the Long Green where Douglass said most of the enslaved lived and worked in his time. The ruins are just below the surface, and in some cases the tops of brick foundations poke through the grass and the loose soil. However, it became clear to me that these small buildings could not possibly have housed the hundreds of people associated with Douglass's description. This last winter and spring, Ben Skolnik, a doctoral student also working with us at the University of Maryland, created a method which found 2 of the missing quarters at Y, the 2 biggest. Ben took the 1960s Foreman map and an undated aerial photograph of superb quality from the first half of the 20th century and modern satellite imagery similar to Google Earth of White House and matched them up. The Foreman map showed a 2-story brick quarter and also a row quarter of 3 contiguous buildings. Now these are gone. Foreman's map had an unreliable scale on it, and boy, have we cursed that for years. We wanted the work to be done easily. We didn't want to find it. We wanted it pointed to, but it isn't the case. But there were many buildings still standing when the aerial photograph was made, and these aerial photographs are bay wide. So Ben ortho-rectified and geo-rectified the aerial image, which meant he corrected for the angle of the airplane whose image was not perpendicular to the ground and fitted universal USGS coordinates to each point in the image. This essentially made the photo into a map that could be fitted squarely onto Foreman's map. Then he created a LiDAR map of Y House from the data provided by the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. This map is composed of a set of laser readings from a flyover done at a very fine scale and produces a topographic map with vertical resolution of only a few centimeters. These are the best topographic maps in the world. This modern topographic map, the 1960s Foreman map, and the ortho-rectified and geo-rectified aerial photograph were combined using software, and the result is made up of accurate coordinates which can be connected to any known location on the ground. This system allowed us to find lost buildings, and it would do so on almost any plantation whose land survives. During spring break, a whole group of very excited and experienced graduate students were welcomed out to Y by the Tillmans to dig. And their welcome is always enthusiastic. And they found the 2 lost quarters. Ben said the quarters were within 10 feet of where his process said they would be. They were found using shovel test pits, which is a sampling method used to explore land where you expect to find something, but you don't know exactly where to look. It's a pretty good process. We still need to excavate parts of these buildings, and we will do so starting on Monday, because we won't know what they really are without looking for the artifacts. And of course, we will collect the pollen from the dirt floors of the quarters in order to see how similar or different the plants there were from the greenhouse and the quarter. We particularly want a pattern of use and domestication, because after all, what I've offered you with regard to the use of pollen and its presence is a hypothesis. It's also a hypothesis that this is the origin of Southern cooking. But the difference between what I'm trying to do here and what we did this morning is a completely well-developed set of ideas from art and from history. This is the first time scientific archaeology has been done out here at a single place for many, many years. And it's going to take decades to make it all make sense. So I want you to see these not as facts. I invite you to see them as hypotheses you can use. In the meantime, our hypothesis about the arrival of African peoples and the building of African American gardening is organized to see beyond White House. To achieve this, 4 of us selected about 40 Chesapeake plantations in Talbot County, Queen Anne's County, and Anne Arundel counties that are on the National Register of Historic Places. Ben Skolnik narrowed the 40 down to 20 based on how intact the plantations seemed to be. That's not the houses, that's the landscapes. Professor Stephen Prince, who is my colleague in the Geography Department at College Park, and Ben arranged for us to get State of Maryland Department of Natural Resources LIDAR readings for the counties around the bay, which included all the plantations we picked. We can make accurate topographic maps from these readings of any piece of land. With these LIDAR maps of historic plantations, and combined with orthorectified and georectified old aerial photographs of the bay's plantations, we can do for all of these plantations what we have begun to do at Y, and here's what we can do. We can find the missing buildings. We can find the torn down quarters. We can find the missing African American homes, the missing African American history. So this is for the future. This is a complex, non-invasive process that depends on older aerial photographs, some of which will date to the earlier 20th century, before many plantation outbuildings and slave quarters were demolished. Such buildings were demolished before they were thought to have use or value, but I don't think they were ever torn down in spite. They just didn't have a use after emancipation. But today, we know they are historic treasures, particularly to their descendants. Now we also know that we can see slavery as a time when African American culture survived and African American culture was made. So these buildings, now gone, have the record of a creative, complex culture in the ground around them, which is only beginning to be understood, and it is all there through a modern and scientific archaeology. Each of the plantation landscapes around here and around the bay has a documented history. Each will have a federal census, listing all of the African descendants by first name. Some will list the skill the person was known for. Most will have probate inventories that list buildings and the people who are owned. Most will have plats that are likely to show the approximate location of quarters. All will have excellently detailed aerial photographs from the 1920s to the 1950s, and these are amazing and beautiful things. All are covered by LIDAR, but only a specialist can make a good topographic map from LIDAR readings, and only a professional could superimpose all these individual layers and find the missing buildings. I am not suggesting a do-it-yourself finding expedition, and casual excavation destroys the context, which is delicate and which must be preserved to finding chronology and pollen and discarded food bones and the structures themselves. I am suggesting, however, a serious commitment to building a different, accurate, and more comprehensive social history. We can work together on the lands of Talbot County to make a history of communities of creativity, a history that announces equality. What will this achieve? What good will it do? What is the significance of all of this? 2 things will be achieved. We will know where African Americans lived, and will be able to allow the owners of surviving plantation lands to protect their properties and the ruins on them much better. Most people I've met here want to know more about the history of their properties, including the quarters on them. Second, and finally, we can build a future on a known, accurate, and celebrated past made by everyone's descendants through contributions from all people. Thank you.